Hello, everybody. Today we're back. We're here to talk about serial killer Todd Kohlhepp. Discovered in South Carolina recently. If you may have already seen my first video. If not, maybe you go back and watch it. It's up to you. But we're here to talk about a few other things now. Some of the things that have become a little bit more clear now. To start, to my MAM subscribers, stick around for just a few minutes. I think you might find something in this first segment a little bit interesting. Anyways, if not, it's fine. Anyways, the interesting thing here with the Superbike murders is that law enforcement, when they investigated, they decided kind of just immediately or just early on that it could not have been an irate customer. I don't know why they made that determination. I don't know. I'm not privy to the investigation reports of that case. So, but there was something about they felt it could have been. In one of the things I watched today, they felt it could have been the wife of one of the employees at the Superbike Motorsports or whatever shop. So, I guess maybe that's how somehow they decided they just didn't need to waste their time looking at customers because they thought it was this person, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, the thing is, I think it's really a shame that they didn't, because, I mean, had they would have probably discovered that this guy was a customer in the past. If they didn't find out he was there that day, they probably would have maybe discovered he was a customer in the past, and they would have maybe done just a minimal amount of checking on him and would have found the stuff in Arizona and that he was a sex offender and stuff like that, and it might have made them go, maybe we take a little bit of a look at this guy just to be sure, So I don't know, but they didn't, unfortunately. I would imagine it's probably SOP to track down every customer that came in that day. I would think. I mean, I would think that would be like number one on the list to do, but I would imagine a standard operating procedure, like I said. So, but they didn't do that. So it turns out that Todd Kohlhepp continued to fly under the radar and was able to go on and hurt others. So it's unfortunate, but I'm not coming down too hard on the law enforcement. But I will say it kind of ties in with something else that I am also passionate about, which is MAM, because many of us who watch Making a Murderer feel that law enforcement really skipped the normal usual suspects, the ex-boyfriends and lovers and stuff like that. They just didn't even ever consider them, and a lot of us feel that they did not find the victim's killer. So I just say that that's something here that stuck out to me, but I'm not going to talk too much about that. I'm going to continue to go ahead and talk about Kohlhepp here. So the first thing we're going to see here is basically a confirmation that he is being charged with the murders of the four people at the Superbike Motorsports, and that his bond gets denied, essentially. So he's going to be in jail while he's on trial, essentially. So I'm going to go ahead and put that up here right now, and then we'll come back and talk in a second.
Hey, thank you, Art. May it please the court. This event, according to these four warrants, occurred on November 6, 2003, Your Honor, 13 years to the day today. It occurred at Superbike Motorsports at 6842 Parish Bridge Road in Chesney, Your Honor. It's about 4 miles west of Chesney. The victims of these crimes were Scott Dean Ponder, Brian Thomas Lucas, Beverly Lane Guy, and Chris Sherbert, Your Honor. All four of them was killed there at that location. A customer called 911 at 3:15 p.m. when they discovered the bodies. The Sheriff's Department is continuing to work this case, Your Honor, as well as other cases. He knows evidence that nobody else would know except the murderer in this case. And there will be obviously possibly other charges, but I know he is not entitled to bond on these charges, and obviously we do not feel like he's entitled to bond because of the dangers of this individual.
Okay, so there in that segment we see that he is clearly getting charged for the Superbike killings. He is being denied bond Clearly, I've watched the whole segment, and I'm going to post the link below so you guys can watch it yourself. It's a 13-minute video where you can see the whole thing, and you can see where the judge speaks to the victims' families after he's taken back out, after he answers all the court's questions and stuff. So I'll leave that link below. Like I said, you guys can check it out if you want. It's 13 minutes. Anyways, right there you see that he's charged with it. He's, he's on the hook for these crimes. So there's no doubt of that. Now, he's also being charged with the deaths of Joe and Megan Leigh Coxey. Joe Coxey and Megan Leigh Coxey. These are the two bodies that, when they brought him back to the property, that he said there were some bodies buried here. Those were the two people that were buried in those graves. There's kind of something interesting, I think, and that speaks to as the way that Todd operated, what he was like. That kind of shows what he felt he was getting out of these killings and stuff. I'm going to go ahead and go into that. But first, I'm going to go ahead and show you right now. It's a newspaper clipping, it's from a newspaper article. And it explains Megan Leigh Coxey and Joe Coxey and about their bodies being found and some other little facts about them. So I'm going to go ahead and put that up right now so you can see that. And then I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about them. So this is part of the article talking about Megan Leigh McCraw Coxey and Joe Coxey. It basically says that they were found, and due to their both having a lot of tattoos, they were able to identify them. But the thing is that similar to what happened to Charlie Carver, Joe was shot in the torso. Both were fully clothed, but he was shot in the torso, like Charlie, and she was found with a bullet wound to the head. That leads me to believe that, Kayla is all the more fortunate, because I'm thinking that he had that shed running for a long time now, that it started with this first couple, and that eventually at some point he was planning to do the same to Kayla, because there's just too many similarities here for it to not be that way, in my opinion. So I just think that there's definitely a pattern here with this guy, and I think that it's a disturbing pattern. So, okay, so we see in that article there, we see that the bodies found there were identified by tattoos and I believe dental records, but they both had numerous tattoos, and that made it fairly quick for them to be able to identify them. The Coxeys had a child. Their child was with somebody else at the time, apparently. They went missing about a year ago. And basically, I guess nobody knew what happened to him for a year. I mean, it's been a year. So this leads me to wonder how long Todd had this storage container set up at his house. And the reason why is because there's some similarities between what he's done to the Coxeys, to Joe and Megan, and to what he was doing to Kayla and Charlie. Charlie Carver. So and I'm going to go into that right now. When you read that article, it says that Joe was shot in the torso or the stomach. I think I heard another report say the stomach. That is not going to be an instant death. That's going to be a horrible, painful death. Right? It's going to put absolute terror and fear and get him all of those disgusting reactions that he wants from the female who's left, basically the mouse that he's toying with. And that's what I think may have happened then. I'm seriously curious how long he's had that storage container set up, and if Megan Leigh McCraw Coxey spent time in that thing too. I think it's a valid question, but it would seem to me that that's what he was getting out of this. That he liked to, number one, take out the man, completely, deflate and humiliate and make the female victim, completely bonkers and crazy, and just, he's getting all of that reaction that he wants in that sense. He keeps the female captive for a while, continuing to toy with them, because that's the sickness in his brain, that's what he craves. And it looks like to me that this may have happened before. This may have been the way he was with those two, because when you hear Kayla talk about it, she says that pretty much as soon as they walked up, the first thing he did was shoot Charlie in the torso. And I don't know how many times he shot Charlie, but I know it was more than once. So it's at least twice that he shot Charlie. And 2 shots to the torso isn't necessarily going to be instant. And I think it's his little way of just totally unsettling the female victim, and also it incapacitates the one person who could probably offer him the most resistance. So there's 2 reasons probably why he would go for the men first, to incapacitate them. So, but it looks to me that that's his pattern. That's the way he was feeding, essentially, I guess, to for lack of a better term, that was the psychology going on in his brain, and why he was doing this. It looks like a pattern to me. It looks very much like a pattern that he, I would even venture to guess. I haven't seen any investigation reports from the Superbike killings, but I feel probably 80% certain that the female at the Superbike killings was probably the last one to be killed, judging by what I'm seeing with these 2 cases, with the Coxies and with Kayla and Charlie. So I'm, feel fairly certain that that's probably the way it went then too, because that's probably where he found out that he liked that, instilling that fear and women displayed it more, and really gave him a more satisfying reaction. And it may be there that he discovered what he loved about killing, because that's what happens with most serial killers. They do something impulsive at one point, but then they start to refine it like it's a fine art, and it's disgusting. But anyways, so we're going to move on to show, once again, like I did in my first video, just exactly how disgusting this guy is, and how disturbed he is, and what might have come up had the law enforcement in these Superbike killings decided to do any, if they had just tried to look into and find his name and look into his past, what might have popped up. We're going to see right now what that would be. So, this states that he was living with his father at the time of a kidnapping that he committed. According to the court documents, Kohlhepp forced the girl into his home and tied her hands and put tape over her mouth and sexually assaulted her. The court documents also include a psychiatric evaluation that say Kohlhepp destroyed his room with a hammer, destroyed other children's projects, Cloroxed the goldfish, shot a dog with a BB gun, was dismissed from the Boy Scouts because he was too disruptive, and shredded his own new clothes at one point. The report also says that his own father made the statement that the only emotion Kohlhepp was capable of was anger. That really says a lot for somebody that really cared about him, to say that he seemed to only have anger. So that's interesting. All right, so now you see his past. You see that stuff would have popped up, and I'm sure red flags would have been going up, and they would have been like, whoa, okay, wait, let's just take a look at this guy. Okay, but, for whatever reason, I'm sure there must be a reason, but, they didn't check out any customers. They didn't believe it could have been an irate customer, so that just never got seen. But it might have. In a minimal amount of looking into, I think it might have popped up. So I just think that's worth noting. That's all. I'm not trying to be super critical of the law enforcement there. I know it's a painful situation for the families and for everybody, so I'm not trying to exacerbate that at all. So, but yeah, I think it could have. I just think it could have came up had it been looked into even minimally. So, now I want to talk about, after seeing Kohlhepp's past there, about his mother. His mother, I get it. She's she loves her son. Okay, that speaks to the fierceness of a mother's love. I mean, nobody loves you like your mother loves you, and that's the way it is, and I think everybody knows that. But having said that, she knows in her heart that he's done these things, that he needs to come to justice, because I have the article I'm going to show you guys right now, and everything I've shown you, there's going to be links to down below, by the way. But this article shows her talking about him, and no matter what she says about, she doesn't think that he meant to do this, or that it's somehow a misfortune or whatever. Well, she knew what he was like, and she admits to it, essentially. Essentially, I'm going to show you the article here, but her and Todd get into it when he was younger. His father had come back into his life after being gone for a while. He had basically left when he was conceived or born or whatever. Suddenly popped back up when Todd was, like I think 12 or 13 or so. And he wanted to move to Arizona with his dad. And his mom didn't want him to, and they got a big old fight. And she was honestly in fear of her life, pretty much, because he threatened her life. And then so she locked his bedroom door and locked him in his room, and then went into her bedroom and locked her door. And the next morning she agreed to let him go with his dad. Now, that pretty much says it right there. Plain and simple. She was afraid of him. She was scared of him. And she obviously had some idea of what he might have been capable of. So, as much as she wants to plead for sympathy on this, I understand. My heart goes out to her as a mother who's having to go through this, but Todd's getting the justice that he has coming to him, and that's just the way it is. But yeah, my heart bleeds for her. I know it must be rough for her to have her only son being a serial killer. It's got to be rough. So here's where his mom states that at one point his dad came back into his life after being gone since he was 2 months old. She says Kohlhepp wanted to move out west with his dad, and she was trying to avoid that, and so she bought him new furniture. He took a claw hammer to all the furniture and tore it all up. They asked her if he threatened her, and she said yeah. He was tall enough and big enough, and I wasn't going to take the chance, and so she locked their bedrooms, and then the next day, she basically let him go with his dad in Arizona. And I think that's telling that she felt fearful, despite her love for him. But he is definitely a bad dude. He's definitely not a good guy. He was clearly loving the terror and the anguish that he was inflicting on his victims. He was clearly proud of it when you look at his activity, the way he was talking on Facebook. That one where he's talking about this person missing, that person missing, another person missing. Oh, this one just went to the beach with a friend. And oh, this one just went with her, is with her parole violating boyfriend. And, he's doing all that spin stuff. It's like I said in my first video, it totally reminds me of John Wayne Gacy. And this guy was connected in the community like John Wayne Gacy too, by the way. Even the sheriff himself that did the arrest is doing this investigation there in Woodruff, in South Carolina. Even somebody asked him, if you were selling a house, would you have called him? He's like, yes, I would have. He would have been the first guy I called. That's what he does. He's good at it. Guy was well respected as a realtor, but yeah. So, and John Wayne Gacy was the same thing, and he's just on Facebook putting this spin on it where it's like no big deal, talking about parole violating boyfriend, things like that, where he's trying to minimize it. I mean, that's just it's really scary when you think about it. So, anyways, that's basically my new update on the whole Todd Kohlhepp thing. I intend to continue looking into it, and if I discover anything even deeper than what I've already kind of discovered, I will be sure to do another video and voice, whatever it is that I think I see there. And we'll definitely see you guys again in the future. Bye-bye. Please subscribe.